Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Abandoned by Girls and Becomes Indominus Rex movie. Before we start, please go support Guerrero Legends for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Issei Hyoudou, the current Serkyuutei and pawn of Rias Gremory, suffers the abandonment of almost all the girls except his king, but when it came time to confess his love, she just turned away from him, making the brown-haired boy feel great pain and sadness. But one day he is captured by some scientists who had planned to make the Earth tremble once again at the footsteps of what was one of the greatest terrestrial predators of the Dinosaur era by genetically altering it, making it a perfect killing machine. Prologue. Narrates Issei, life is a curious thing, you will never know what it has in store for you, and I know this from experience. Before I was a normal boy with a normal life. Nothing out of the ordinary. I had a family that loved me, friends who cared about me even if they were perverts, ha. I really liked seeing how they were chased by the girls of the kendo club. It was very fun to see them every day. But there was also that beautiful girl with crimson hair and blue eyes. One of the great Ones Samus of the Rias Gremory Academy. She always watched me from the old building. I could feel the seriousness with which she looked at me, but I felt calm and I couldn't detect any bad intentions in her. It was as if she was curious about me, and to tell the truth I was also curious about her. Since I only knew that she was the greatest of the Onisama, she was very smart, beautiful and had good attributes. Although that part didn't matter to me, I wanted to get to know her better, to know her tastes in food and music, her favorite color and things like that. The days passed, and it was the same until one of those days a girl with black hair and violet eyes appeared. She said her name was Yuma Amano, and she had also told me that she had seen me pass by here a lot and that she wanted to go on a date with me. I accepted, and a few days later we had our date. I took her to all the places I could think of, and at the end of the day we finished with a walk through the fountain that was in the middle of a park. I had a great time, I'm not going to deny it, but then Yuma stood in front of me. While she had a big smile, I smiled too, but then I felt like time was passing slower. Yuma still kept her smile, but I felt something cold in my stomach. I slowly looked down, watching as Yuma stuck what seemed to be a shiny spear. She just laughed while I fell to the ground. I still remember the cruel and hurtful words she had said to me. Yuma, yes, you are pathetic. Did you really think that someone wanted to be with a being as disgusting as you? You are just pitiful? That's what he told me, and then I saw how black wings came out of his back and he flew away. Yuma was right about one thing. I was very different from the others. I didn't have the same tastes as everyone else. Before I liked to be alone. But when I met my first friend Irina, I started to change. Although some things remained the same, I tried to change. I was still somewhat cold with others. I didn't feel any kind of pain, and when I see a girl in somewhat embarrassing situations, I'm just neutral. I was very sure that was going to be my end. But then she appeared, Rias Gremory. She looked at me with a smile, while I slowly lost consciousness. Since then I know about the natural, that I was the bearer of the booster gear, and also that I became the pawn of Rias Gremory. I was quite surprised to learn that she was a devil and daughter of the largest family in the entire underworld. Since then I faced things that I did not think I would be able to face. I confronted Yuma, or rather Rainier, whom I had considered my friend, and we saved a nun named Asia who joined the Bicho clan. Then I faced Rias Phoenix, a high-class devil who was engaged to Rias. Despite not having enough power to give her a good fight, it was only enough to use my head literally to win. Then we faced a cadre called Kokobile. I had my first confrontation with my rival Vala Lucifer. We faced Loki. We saved the yokai queen Yasaka from Chow Chow and his hero faction, and finally there was the war of the factions against the Chaos Brigade. After so much fighting from fight to fight, there was peace. A peace that I wanted to live so much. During this time I had begun to feel something for the girls Akino, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia, Irina, Ravel and Ross. I felt love for them, but especially for Rias. I felt very lucky to have them by my side. Although the relationship I had with Rias was more of friends, I was very happy to have them with me. But that happiness did not last long. The reason, well, when we took the following academic years they were distancing themselves from me. Each one secretly saw some boys that made me very sad. Rias was the only one who stayed by my side, always encouraging me. About a week passed until I decided to confess my love to her. It was a beautiful afternoon in the city of Kwa. I was in the occult club with Rias. It was just her and I. We were talking about normal things and laughing, but I decided to confess my feelings for her. I approached her and got on one knee, something that disconcerted them a little. After a somewhat awkward silence, I decided to drop the bomb by telling her that I loved her, that I had fallen in love with her since she gave me the opportunity to be her pawn. Silence reigned again in the place, and when I was going to ask Rias if she was okay, she just gets up and runs away from the place while I stayed there alone. With a broken heart, I was like that for almost 3 hours until I decided to leave the club and went to the place where it all started, to the park where I was stabbed by Rainier. I sat on a bench while I remembered everything that happened with them and my supposed friends, and that's how I got here, at this moment, alone, abandoned and broken. Normal narration. Issei had a lost look as he remembered all the good times he spent with the girls, until a red gauntlet appeared on his arm. "Drake, buddy, are you okay?" Issei, "No, Drake. I don't feel well," he said with a brittle voice. "It seems that I never meant anything to them. Everything I did for them was for nothing, and surely the leaders know about their relationships, since when I saw those guys I felt that their energies belonged to each faction." "Drake, buddy, you know I'm here if you ever need anything." Issei, "Thank you very much, Dragh," he complained when he felt something stinging the back of his neck. He grabbed what stung him and saw that it was a tranquilizer dart. The brown-haired boy began to feel dizzy, then he turned around to see a guy standing in front of him staring at him. But before he could do anything, another guy appeared and hit him with the handle of a gun, knocking him unconscious. "Drake, buddy, wake up," he said, somewhat scared. "Scientist, finally, after so much time we have the great Serkyuutei at our mercy," he said very happily, and then took out a communicator. "Prepare the laboratory. We are on our way." At that point, some armed men grabbed the brown-haired boy and put him in a van before leaving the place without leaving any trace in the area. Chapter 1. It's been 2 months since Issei disappeared from Kwa, and since then things have been a bit altered. Rias Gremory's entourage spent their days quietly for a while, except for Rias, since in her mind the question that the brown-haired boy had asked her was still there. The truth is that she regretted not having given the brown-haired boy an answer back then, but fear had invaded her, causing her to run away, leaving the brown-haired boy there. She didn't know why she acted like that, or rather, she didn't accept the reason. She really felt stupid for not giving him an answer at that moment. She didn't know what to do until she turned to her best friend Sona Citri. Flashback. Rias could be seen sitting in one of the student council chairs with her head down, being supported by her hands, while Sona approached her with a couple of cups of tea. Although she looked somewhat confused since her friend never arrived like that suddenly, maybe something had happened to her, was what she thought. "Sona, have a laugh," she said, giving him a cup of tea. Rias, "Thank you very much, Sona," she said, grabbing her tea. Sona, "Okay, Rias, tell me what happened." Rias, "Nothing. What makes you think something happened?" she said somewhat nervously, trying to lie. Sona, "Rias, I wasn't born yesterday. You're always here when there's a problem or if you want to talk about something of utmost importance." Rias just gave a sigh of defeat, since Sona knew very well that something was wrong with her. Not for nothing were they friends. So she proceeded to tell her everything that had happened, since she and Issei discovered that they were with other people until the moment in which he declared his love to her, and she just ran away from there. Sona was shocked and angry, shocked to hear that the girls of her friend's entourage abandoned the Serkyuutei, and angry for 2 reasons. 1. Because of how stupid the members of the Gremory entourage were, and 2. Because of the mistake her friend made. So without further ado, she gave her a slap on the head. "Rias, Sona, why are you hitting me?" she said, rubbing her head as a tear came out of her eyes. Sona, "And you still ask?" she said, sitting at her desk and taking her tea. Laughs. "What do you think Issei is going to think about what you did?" Upon hearing that, Rias became sad and ran away from there, leaving the brown-haired boy alone. Sona, "So you're going to do Rias? Or rather, what do you feel for him?" she said, seeing that the redhead remained silent. "You have to do what your heart tells you and not your head." Upon hearing that, Rias just left her cup of tea and headed out to the occult club, while Sona just stayed in the student council starting to review some documents. Then flashback. After that, Rias went to the club to talk to Issei, but when she arrived there was no one in the club, so she decided to return to the Hyoudou mansion to see if he was at home. But the result was the same. She began to look for him in all the places where he could be, She even asked her friends if they had seen him, but nothing. For a month she looked for him with the help of Sona's entourage since she could not trust hers. But seeing that it had no result, she decided to tell everything that happened to Xerxes so that he could help her, although Xerxes did not like at all that Rias left Issei alone. But he had to understand her since he went through almost the same thing when he confessed to Graphia, and began to look for some clue of the brown-haired boy with the help of Azazel and Michael. Since Yasaka and Odin were busy with other matters, of course they did it without the Gremory entourage noticing at Rias' request. Unknown location. In a forest far away from any city, an abandoned building could be seen that, despite being in the forest, looked in good condition. But it was not all that it seemed, since inside it, more specifically below, was one of the largest military bases abandoned many years ago, the Alpha Base. There were many people running from one side to the other. Some seemed to be running while others were carrying non-lethal weapons to try to neutralize something. But then a loud noise accompanied by a tremor was heard. The target is at level 3 and approaching level 2. I repeat, the target is at level 3 and approaching level 2, said a voice through some speakers. Several soldiers stood in front of a large steel door that said level 3. Large footsteps were heard as well as some grunts, and they see how something began to hit the door as dents began to form in them. But from one moment to the next everything calms down. The armed subjects were going to proceed to enter, but in that the ground is destroyed. Everyone is thrown to different parts while a giant silhouette comes out of the ground and begins to move very quickly, destroying everything in its path, and all under the sight of a subject who saw all this from his throne with a magic circle, and next to him was the scientist who had caught Issei. Scientist, and what do you think, sir? Not bad, but what guarantees me that this being is very powerful? Scientist, oh, don't worry about that, sir. We studied the abilities and potential of the booster gear when we extracted it from that child, and I can say that my creation can easily kill the 2 celestial dragons. In addition to that, every time he receives any damage, his strength will increase without any limit, and also that he is an extremely intelligent being. A perfect killing machine, huh? Scientist, that's right, Mr. Rizavim. The one already identified as Rizavim only gave a smile as he watched the creature leave the secret base and run into the forest. Rizavim, well, since I have what I want, your services are of no use to me anymore, he said, throwing a black sphere towards the scientist, killing him. Now the factions are going to fall before me, jum jum jum, ha 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 ha. He began to laugh like crazy while the creature gave a powerful roar to the night sky and then disappeared into the darkness of the forest. Chapter 2. Forest of Familiars. You could see the great forest of familiars calmly, with all those beings walking calmly, while in a cave in the middle of the forest you could see a large blue dragon which was sleeping since she had been training for a long time, while next to her you could see a figure of a little girl running towards the exit of the cave. Watching as many familiars walked back and forth following her path, the light illuminated the entrance of the cave, revealing the girl who had long blue hair as well as her eyes, white skin and great beauty. This little girl was the daughter of Tiamat, one of the great dragon kings and the ex-female of Drake, the red dragon emperor. The little girl looked around with a smile and then returned inside the cave to try to wake her mother. Girl, mom, wake up, she said, trying to move the head of the big blue dragon. Mama, mommy, wake up, she said, achieving her goal. Tiamat, Lisbeth, yawn, what's wrong? Said the dragon as she woke up. Lisbeth, Mom wanted to know if she could go play? The little girl asked. Tiamat, oh, this time? Daughter, it's already a bit late, and she didn't finish speaking when she saw the most fatal weapon a child can have. Puppy dog eyes. Sigh, it's okay, Lisbeth, she said, seeing how the little girl jumped and started running towards the exit of the cave. Just don't go too far from the cave, it's okay. Lisbeth, yes, Mom, she said, leaving the cave. Tiamat just shook her head while smiling and then went back to sleep and thanked life for giving her a daughter like her. While with Lisbeth, she is walking through the forest while playing with a branch that was lying there and humming a song, but then she stops walking because she saw something very strange marked on the ground. They were some footprints that she had never seen before. Lisbeth, and this? She wondered as she approached the footprint. Whose could it be? I've never seen anything like it. But then she noticed a trail of footprints. Lisbeth began to follow them until she managed to visualize where they were going, to the mountains. She knew very well that anyone who went in there would never be able to get out again, and this became known because many of her family members went in there and never came back. Some say they got lost there and never found their way out, or that they were victims of a landslide, among other things, but she could see that the footprints were recent, so she went to where they were headed to try to warn the being of those footprints on the mountain. 3 hours later, little Lisbeth was still following the footprints until the moment came when they disappeared, and right in front of her there was nothing, just a wall and no exit other than where she came from. But then she heard a very strange sound as if it were breathing, observing that they came from a cave. Deciding to go inside to find out what it was, she walked for 5 minutes until she started to smell something that was truly disgusting. "Lisbeth, what is this smell?" she wondered while covering her nose. But her answer was answered when she saw many bones scattered everywhere. She was scared at that moment, but when she looked at a certain place she could see a large creature with gray fur and large fangs as well as claws and horns. "Lisbeth, one does a billion bones cure," she said, frightened. In front of him was a dark familiar, beings that were changed or abandoned by their masters, causing their hearts to fill with hatred and darkness, transforming them into evil monsters. But the problem was that this being was one of the first 4, the most dangerous of all, even though its level was not the same as the first 3. It was much more powerful than the celestial dragons. Lisbeth began to back away very slowly, but then she stepped on a bone, breaking it, causing the dark being to wake up somewhat confused. But when he smelled her scent he turned to look at her while beginning to show his fangs. Upon seeing that, Lisbeth began to run as fast as she could while the creature began to chase her with a powerful roar. "Lisbeth, help please," I screamed, hoping someone will hear me. "Help me please, someone help me." While a few meters outside the cave someone, or rather something, had heard her, causing her to wake up, revealing that her eyes were blood red. The creature began to growl as it headed towards where it heard the scream, ready to fight if necessary. Chapter 3. Lisbeth ran as fast as she could while avoiding hitting the bones around her, while the dark familiar tried to catch her. The little dragon ran as fast as she could, but when she left the cave and turned around to flee from there, the dark familiar jumped and stood in front of her, causing Lisbeth to stop and start backing away in fear, until she ran into the wall as the monster approached them ready to devour her. "Lisbeth, please someone help me," she thought while crying. The dark familiar was about to devour her, but then it would smell something else and begin to back away while it began to roar something at her. Lisbeth thought it was roaring at her, but then she would see how the wall would begin to move while it slowly changed color and gave shape to the next creature. Lisbeth was very shocked to see how that creature appeared out of nowhere, but she also noticed that it looked a lot like a dinosaur, but she didn't remember that such a dinosaur existed. The creature stood in front of the dark familiar while growling at him. The dark being continued to roar at him, until the Indominus Rex gave one more powerful than his. Play the song above. The dark familiar launched itself at the Indominus, biting its neck and knocking it down. The dark familiar applied more force to its bite while the Indominus tried to free itself. Lisbeth, seeing her chance, began to run to take shelter behind a rock while the two giants faced each other. The Indominus had finally managed to break free from the dark familiar's bite and tried to bite it. The monster tried to push it away, but the dinosaur swiped at its leg, but the dark familiar headbutted it, causing the Indominus to crash into the wall. The dark familiar was going to attack the Indominus, but Lisbeth threw a rock at it, drawing its attention and causing it to run towards her. Lisbeth was going to run but stumbled, leaving her at the mercy of the dark familiar, but just before it was devoured, it received a tail swipe in the jaw, causing it to back away from the Indominus Rex. The monster tried to swipe at the Indominus, but it swiped at it again, causing it to be thrown against the wall. Lisbeth tried to run but was held by the Indominus and then tried to get out of there, but the dark familiar jumped and fell on top of her, starting to bite and scratch the Indominus's back, causing it to release the little dragon, who watched in horror as the monster made the dinosaur bleed while trying to get rid of it until it fell on its back, causing the dark familiar to release it, and the Indominus to grab Lisbeth with its mouth and start running while they were followed by the dark familiar. Pause the song. While in the forest, almost all of the familiars could be seen gathered in the middle of the forest, while in front of them was a large, imposing lion who was trying to calm things down since it seemed like something bad had happened. "Leon, calm down," Calm down, friends, we will just wait for Tiamat to arrive so we can start this meeting. Family 1. But Aslan, how did this happen? Family member 2. Yes, how did that happen? Family 3. And what are we going to do now? Aslan, that's why we're waiting for Tiamat to find out what to do. In that they see how a large figure appears among the trees and then they see how a large blue dragon emerges from them. Aslan, we were waiting for you to arrive, Tiamat said the lion seriously. Tiamat, well, I'm here. Now tell me, what happened to wake me up? Aslan just nodded his head indicating the great dragon as they passed some bushes. Tiamat was very shocked because in front of her was what was supposed to be a river but in reality it was all dry. Tiamat. The river is no longer there, she said shocked. Aslan, the same thing happened with the other rivers as well as the lakes. Tiamat, but what could have happened? Aslan, that's what I'd like to know. Family 4. But now what are we going to do, Aslan? Aslan, I think it would be best if he did not finish saying because a great tremor was felt throughout the forest we had better leave here. Tiamat, I support you this time. Aslan, gather all the relatives here, then we will go to the. He was interrupted again by a loud bang. Family 5, what was that? Familiar 6, it came from the mountain, he said while pointing at the mountain where the Indominus and the dark familiar were fighting. Aslan, what's going on? But Tiamat had a terrible feeling in her heart as if she felt that her daughter was in danger, and she was not wrong. Her mother's instincts told her that she had to go there as fast as she could. So she listened to them and took flight towards the mountain while everyone watched her go. Play the song. On the mountain, you could see how the stones fell because of a tremor that was caused by the Indominus Rex and the dark familiar. Now this dark being tried to hit the Indominus which still had Lisbeth held in its snout from her clothes. The albino dinosaur, seeing what was going to happen, moved quickly, causing the monster to hit the wall. Then raised his right foot avoiding a bite, and then gave him a powerful tail swipe leaving him KO, giving the Indominus the opportunity to get out of there to save the girl. But out of nowhere a great tremor was felt, and the ground was destroyed in front of the Indominus, revealing a large river of lava. Lisbeth, now what? I asked, very scared. The Indominus was going to return, but he saw how the dark familiar ran towards them, so he left Lisbeth on the ground, ran towards him, and bit his neck, making him back off. The albino bit the familiar's neck hard while moving aggressively, until the dark being scratched the Indominus's neck but proceeded to hit him without pause, knocking him down. The Indominus tried to get up, but the dark familiar bit his neck, causing him to stay on the ground, then grabbed him by the neck and slammed him head first into a rock, causing him to roar in pain all under Lisbeth's shocking gaze. Lisbeth, leave it, she shouted as she watched the Indominus try to defend itself. The albino dinosaur tried to get up, but the familiar bit his neck again to knock him down. The dark familiar was going to proceed to end the life of the Indominus. But he sees how Lisbeth cried, thinking that it was going to be his end, so taking out the strength he had, he got up and headbutted the familiar. Then bit his head and started crashing him against the ground several times, then threw him off the edge of the cliff, almost causing him to fall into the lava. The Indominus was going to attack the familiar again, but out of nowhere a geyser shot out of the ground, burning the left leg of the albino dinosaur. Lisbeth, careful. But then the piece of land where she and the familiar were began to break away and fall into the lava. Lisbeth tried to climb, but unfortunately the stone crumbled, and when she was about to be devoured by the familiar, the Indominus Rex gave the dark being a swipe, causing it to fall into the lava while it caught the little dragon with its claw. The albino was going to leave that place until the path behind him was also destroyed, revealing how the lava surrounded the only piece of land he was on. Lisbeth. Oh no, she said while being held by the Indominus. Now what are we going to do? The Indominus was looking for a way to save the little girl, but then he saw something flying over them that seemed to be looking for something. When he saw better, he saw that it was a dragon, Tiamat. The Indominus gave a roar, calling the dragon's attention. When Tiamat saw the Indominus, she tried to approach him to try to help him, but when she saw that he was holding her daughter, she thought that he was going to hurt her, so she prepared to attack. Lisbeth, Mom, wait, she shouted, trying to calm her mother down. Tiamat, release my daughter, she shouted, pushing the Indominus, causing it to fall off the rock. Tiamat, seeing that the dinosaur was going to fall next to her daughter, tried to do something but saw how the Indominus held on with one of its claws while with the other it tried to pull Lisbeth up. But unfortunately a rock fell on Lisbeth's head, leaving her unconscious and causing her to fall from the Indominus's claw. Tiamat! Lisbeth, she screamed as she watched her daughter fall. Lisbeth was about to fall into the lava but would be caught by the Indominus that released itself, going down almost to the lava and caught her. Tiamat was quite surprised to see that but saw how the Indominus stretched out its claw where it had Lisbeth, giving it to her. The blue dragon was more shocked but left that aside and proceeded to grab one of her claws to her daughter while looking sadly at the Indominus. Tiamat, I'm so sorry, she said as the Indominus licked her cheek, surprising the dragon but understanding that it was a sign not to worry. I'm really sorry, she said, shedding many tears as she walked away from there. The Indominus Rex just watched as the big blue dragon walked away with the little one, then looked around as he had practically no way out of the situation he was in. Sorry, I didn't find another image. With Tiamat, she was flying away from the mountains that had now become an active volcano. Tiamat decided to continue flying until she got out of the dust and ashes, but when she did so she was shocked to see how the forest was devastated by what had happened. Tiamat decided to go investigate if there was anyone alive, but she felt that she and her daughter were the last ones left of what used to be the family forest. Chapter 4. Tiamat flew over what was once the forest of familiars. She was looking for any sign that someone was alive, but nothing. There was no sign that anyone had survived. But then she saw how her daughter was beginning to show signs of wanting to wake up, so she landed in a part of the place and carefully left her daughter on the ground. Who began to wake up? Lisbeth, mama? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Where are we? She asked, still half asleep. And where is he? She asked, standing up quickly. Tiamat was surrounded by blue flames and began to shrink in size until she was the height of a normal person. The blue flames intensified a little until they dissipated, revealing a beautiful woman with long blue hair, eyes of the same color, and creamy white skin. Tiamat, I'm so sorry, daughter, but he couldn't get out of that place, she said sadly, watching how her daughter began to shed many tears. Lisbeth, no, he must be okay. He is very strong. She didn't finish speaking since Tiamat had hugged her. Tiamat, daughter, he had no way out of there, and I couldn't let you die, she said as she began to cry. At least he saved you, and I am truly grateful to him for that. Lisbeth, I wish he had also come out alive, she said sadly. Tiamat, come on, daughter, we must get out of here. So mother and daughter began their journey through all that devastation in search of a new home. They traveled for 3 weeks, passing through the great devastation caused by the volcanic reaction. Now Tiamat was in her dragon form, crossing what seemed to be a desert. Tiamat, calm down, daughter, you'll see that we'll find more Fa. Lisbeth, wait, mom, look, she said, making her mother stop while they watched something hide quickly. You saw it, right? Tiamat, that's right, she said as she walked more carefully. Where will it be? Tiamat walked very carefully since she didn't know if what they were going to find was good or bad. After following the tracks of whatever that thing was, they came to an open area with rocks around it. Tiamat didn't like the situation she was in at all, but she was taken out of her thoughts by a strange sound. Tiamat and Lisbeth looked where the sound came from, finding the next creature. That being was about 5 meters tall and was very chilling. In addition to the aura it emanated, since it was dark, it transmitted hatred, resentment, and bloodlust. Without a doubt it was a dark familiar, although it was not the most dangerous since its power was at the level of the leaders. Tiamat was going to proceed to crush the creature, but then she saw more appear and surrounded her. It was a group of 10, perhaps what was left of a pack. Lisbeth, Mom, I'm scared, she said, scared as she watched the dark familiar surround Tiamat, putting her against the wall. Tiamat, calm down, you'll see that everything will be fine, she said while trying to back away. The blue dragon did not know what to do. It was true that she could fight against them despite being outnumbered, but then she saw how one of those beings launched itself into the attack, more specifically her daughter. She raised one of her wings, blocking the attack, but unfortunately the dark familiar tore it apart. Tiamat began to run, seeing that the others were willing to attack her and her daughter. Tiamat, Lisbeth, hold on tight, she shouted as she ran as fast as she could. Tiamat ran into a sandstorm while being chased by the dark familiars. She ran as fast as she could, but the dark familiars were faster and were about to catch up with her until they managed to feel a tremor causing them to stop and retreat. "Lisbeth, Mom, they're not following us anymore," he said, making his mother stop and watch as the familiars retreated. But in that she would be knocked down by a large being, she could not see what it was, but the moment she saw it better she was shocked, since it was the most powerful familiar that existed. "Nti, get out of the way, girl," I claimed while stepping over her. Tiamat proceeded to hug Lisbeth in order to protect her from being crushed by Nti until she saw another familiar that she never expected to see, since it was the second most powerful that can exist. "Reiku, didn't you hear Nti? Move, girl." Tiamat did not understand what was happening, but when she got up she could see that it was a herd of familiars, surely survivors of the devastation caused by the volcanic reactions. "No way, are you the great Tiamat?" said a female voice that seemed to be excited. Tiamat and her daughter turned to where the voice came from, seeing a familiar female with red hair, eyes, white skin and dressed in the same color decorated with green parts. "Tiamat, hello," she said somewhat nervously. "Gardevoir, nice to meet you. My name is Gardevoir and I am a psychic/fairy type familiar." "Lisbeth, you are very pretty," she said as she got off her mother's back. "Gardevoir, thank you very much, little one," she said, bowing. Tiamat, "Excuse me, but where is everyone going?" Gardevoir, "Oh well, let's go to our new home," she said with a smile. Tiamat, "To your new home?" Gardevoir, "Yes, to the Valley of the Roosts that lies beyond the limits of the familiar world." Tiamat, "The valley, but I thought that was just a myth." Gardevoir, "For now it's our only option. Wouldn't you like to come with us?" I asked. But before Tiamat could respond, the dark familiars that had attacked her appeared again. "Tiamat, we accept your invitation." Saying that, he quickly grabbed Gardevoir and Lisbeth and then ran off to where the pack was, while leaving behind the dark familiars, who stopped after seeing them heading towards the pack. But what they didn't know was that they were being watched by a huge figure that kept its distance but followed the pack, but especially Tiamat and Lisbeth. Chapter 5. Nti's pack had reached some rocky areas where they were going to sleep. Tiamat had joined the pack while carrying her daughter on her back, only to see them stop in that area. Something she did not like at all, since it was a good area for the house, and they would be the main course. "Reiku, Nti, I think it would be better to go deeper." "Nti, let's rest here. Give the signal, Reiku," I ordered as Reiki gave a roar as a sign of resting. Tiamat, "Are you really planning to rest here?" she asked, not believing what they were doing. Gardevoir, "Nti has always been like this, always wanting to prove that he is right. Without knowing that all it does is harm us," said a voice behind them. Turning around, they could see a blue dragon that was half the size of Tiamat. "Tiamat, and who are you?" "Oh my gosh, it's Tabitha. It's a pleasure to meet the great dragon, Tiamat," she said kindly. "Lisbeth, and you come alone?" she asked, getting off her mother's back. Tabitha, "Nope, I came with someone." At that, the ground trembles a little while a lump appears in the middle of the girls to reveal a kind of giant mole. "Hi, my name is Guiche, it's a pleasure." "Lisbeth, kawaii," she shouted, hugging Guiche as he gladly accepted. Tiamat, "And it is true that they are heading to the valley." Tabitha, "That's right, for now it's the only place we have." Lisbeth, "What if that place doesn't exist?" she said, somewhat scared, while Guiche approached her to calm her down. Gardevoir, "I think we'll just stick with the old lady until we find a place where we can live in peace." Guiche, "The problem is keeping up." Tiamat, "Why?" Tabitha, "Nti, the one who screams and never listens." Gardevoir, "I tried to talk to him to quicken my pace a little, but I think that for him understanding is not in his language." Tiamat, "So what language is he speaking?" she asked angrily, just to see the big three pass by her, pushing her. Tiamat, "Hey, what's the problem?" Tabitha, "They are the legendaries, so be careful." Lisbeth, "Hey, excuse me," she said, approaching the three of them. Tiamat, "Lisbeth, what are you doing?" Lisbeth, "I'm going to talk to them," she said as she continued walking. "Could you give me a minute, please?" Reiku, "Get away, girl," he said in an intimidating manner. Nti, Jum relax Reiki, he said, and then approached the girl who got nervous because of Entiai's size. Who are you? Lisbeth. I am Lisbeth Hebade and Matt, she said, very nervous and scared. Entiai, so you're Tiamat's daughter, huh? And how did you end up here? Lisbeth, my mom and I decided to travel with you. Entiai, so your mother is here too, huh? Lisbeth, excuse me, but I wanted to ask you if we can speed up the pace for those who cannot keep up. Entiai, let everyone follow the weak, he said mockingly. It's a great idea. I'd rather do the thinking, girl, he said, walking away from her. Tiamat, calm down, daughter, at least you did the right thing. Tabitha, we appreciate you doing this to help us, but Entiai is stronger than you think, even surpassing the celestial dragons. Tiamat, I really hate beings like him. Guiche, Entiai has crushed insects bigger and stronger than your grandmother. Tiamat, her brain lies in the palm of my Gardevoir. Excuse me, Tiamat, but it is better to obey Entiai since thanks to him, they do not dare to come to cut off our heads, he said, pointing to the dark familiars who attacked Tiamat. Tabitha, consider yourself very lucky that they are the only ones following us, May said after pointing at the dark familiars. But then Lisbeth could see a white tail hiding in the sand while she heard a few growls, causing the dark familiars to slowly move away. The next morning, the sun could be seen rising, illuminating the rocky areas where the relatives were, who were beginning to wake up, preparing to continue on their way. But among all the relatives, a little blue-haired girl could be seen who was walking to where her mother was, who was in her same form as Tabitha and Guiche. Tabitha. Guiche. Lisbeth, hey mom, it's really late, don't keep sleeping, she said while her mother was still sleeping. Mom, she screamed, making her mother get up. Tiamat, with green sauce please, she said, still sleepy. Lisbeth, were you dreaming about food, mom? Tiamat, no, well, what's happening that makes you wake me up so early, daughter? Lisbeth, they're starting to gather, we have to go, she said before hearing a scream. Reiku, everyone get up, Entiai says it's time to leave, he said before starting to push a familiar. Let's stand up, get up. Lisbeth, oh, how bitter, she said before being silenced by her mother. Reiku, did they say something? He said in a serious and threatening manner. Tiamat, no, not like you think, she said somewhat nervously. Reiku, they're running late, so here you and your daughter start moving, he ordered while he was going to get the others up. Lisbeth, do you think we'll be okay, mommy? Tiamat, of course, Liz. I didn't finish when I saw how all the family members gathered together while in front of them there was a large desert and the big three. Entiai, we have many beginners, make clear the rule of not waiting for anyone, he said seriously. Reiku, if this is your first trip, listen, he said, drawing everyone's attention. There will be no water until the other side and keep up the pace. If you can stay there, move now, he ordered them to walk towards the desert. Gardevoir, wow, this is going to be one hell of a ride. Tabitha, and hot, if it smells like barbecue it's my feet. He said, advancing with the herd as well as Guiche, Gardevoir and Tiamat prepared for what awaited them. Chapter 6. Underworld Lucifer Castle. You could see all the leaders gathered as well as different clans as well as some leaders of other factions that had been invited to the Alliance. Everyone was having fun at the big party that the leaders of the Alliance had organized except one person who was Rias Gremory, who was looking for a certain brown-haired boy whom she had not seen in a long time. But in that she managed to see her entire clan talking to other men animatedly, thus finding out that those were the people. That made her very angry, so without further ado she decided to get away from them and continue looking for Issei until Xerxes went up on stage. Xerxes, good evening nobles, leaders and allies who accompany us today, he said, making everyone applaud. Well, I also wanted to thank our guests, the leaders of the Indian, Egyptian and Greek factions, for coming to this event, he said while those mentioned got up from their seats and made a slight bow. But I would also like to give a small report, and for that I need my sister and her clan to come to the front please, he said while those mentioned did as requested, although Rias wanted to keep her distance from them. The report I want to give is that in 2 months a very special day will be celebrated for my sister Rias and her clan. Rias, and what would that be, Oni-chan? She asked, getting an idea. Xerxes, Well, what I mean is that in 2 months my sister and her clan are finally going to get married with the man they love, who is the same hero of the Issei Hyoudou factions. After saying that, everyone applauded while the girls of the Gremory clan got excited by what was said, but Rias only remained serious, and at the same time a little angry by the behavior of her clan. How can they be so happy to be about to marry Issei if they decided to leave him for other boys? But then she hears her brother say the following. Searches. Okay, now I just want Issei Hyoudou to come forward so we can officially seal the engagement, he said, waiting for the brown-haired boy to pass by. Everyone looked everywhere to find the brown-haired boy, but nothing. They couldn't see him anywhere. The girls also started looking for him with their eyes except for Rias, who only approached her brother to touch his shoulder to get his attention. Searches. What's wrong, Rias? Rias. Oni-chan, I would like to say a few words, she said seriously and sadly. Searches. What's wrong, Rias? I asked seriously. Rias. Issei is not coming, and don't ask me why or where he is because I don't even know. It's been a long time since I spoke to him, she said, making everyone listen to her, especially the girls. Searches. What happened between you? Rias. The last time I saw him, he declared his love for me and I didn't know what to do. I was happy to have heard his question about whether I wanted to be his girlfriend, but for some reason my body motivated itself and I ran out of the club. She said, sad to remember that. I was very nervous and didn't know what to do and… Akino, Rias, what nonsense have you done? She said, annoyed, trying to slap him but was held by Rias. Rias, you are nobody to talk to me like that, Heinjima, she said, annoyed, pushing her. Seiches, you shouldn't talk to him like that. Rias, Oni-chan, all of them were also to blame for Issei's disappearance, she said, confusing everyone. Searches, what are you talking about, Rias? Rias, that all of them abandoned Issei for other men, she shouted angrily, shocking everyone and scaring the girls. Baraquil, lies, my daughter wouldn't be capable of that, he said, looking at Akino, who was nervous. Akino, tell me it's a lie. Akino, it is Odo-san. I would never be able to do that. She didn't finish because Rias grabbed her by the collar of her clothes. Rias, Akino Heinjima, as your king I order you to tell the truth. The brunette, seeing that a magic circle with the Gremory symbol appeared on her neck, began to resist, but it was very difficult for her. She could not disobey the orders of her king, so in the end she told the whole truth, saying that all of them cheated on Issei with the leader's assistance except for Rias. Everyone upon hearing that was quite shocked and then became very angry. Baraquil threw himself at Akino's boyfriend, who tried to separate him, only to receive a slap from her father. Baraquil, I always trusted you, Akino, but I see that I should never have given you that trust, he said, disappointed. Akino, but Odo-san, we only did it to gain experience and… Baraquil, shut up, don't ruin it anymore, he said, annoyed with his daughter. Asia. But the president left him alone. She is also to blame, she said, trying to defend herself as well as her friends. Rias, and I'm disappointed in myself for doing that to him, and I'm willing to cancel my engagement if Oni-sama decides so. Searches, Rias, there's no need for that, he said, taking her by the shoulder. I also made that mistake with Grafia when we were young. I understand you and I know you'll have another chance to be with Issei. Rias, do you really think so, Oni-chan? Searches, that's right, but your clan will no longer have the opportunity to do so. Zenobia, but Searches-sama. Searches, you are forbidden to try to approach Issei, and it is an order as a demon king. If you try to do so you will be considered traitors, he said seriously, making the girls tremble with anger. And just like that, everyone left the party in search of Issei Hyoudou, not knowing that he was no longer the same as before and that he had possibly already died in the accident in his relative's forest that no one had found out about. Chapter 7. World of Familiars. Everything was very silent, not a sign of life, but in the desert of the world of familiars, rumblings began to be heard as well as small tremors began to be felt, and then the herd of familiars could be seen walking through the desert in search of their new home. But behind them Tiamat and her new companions could be seen walking a little away from them. Liz was lying on her mother's back while trying to sleep until she feels a little dirt fall on her head. She shook off that dirt to direct her gaze from where it fell, seeing how a white tail was moving above a cliff, hiding itself, making her curious about what that thing was. 2 days later, All the relatives continued on their way without any rest while Enti and Reiku watched the herd advance. Although they looked very tired, Reiku was going to proceed to take a rest. Reiku, Enti, we should rest. Enti, what we should, he said, interrupting him, is to speed up the pace. Reiku just gave a roar as he glared at Enti, causing the familiars to walk faster while Tiamat and company glared angrily at the leader of the pack. So the hours of long walk passed until night fell, where they decided to slow down, but Tiamat, seeing the reason, became quite angry since a familiar had died from forcing her body so much, so she decided to stay closer to her companions since each time the dark familiars got closer and closer to them. But what everyone ignored except Lisbeth, who always stayed alert with that since she could see again the same tail hiding in the sand not far from them. So the days passed in which the herd traveled without stopping, where everyone was already about to take their last breath if it weren't for Tiamat, who encouraged them to continue forward. The days turned into weeks in which they did not stop traveling, without being able to eat or sleep until they reached the halfway point. It had taken them 3 weeks of travel to be able to reach the halfway point of the trip. But they never thought that they would encounter a great challenge, and that was a great lake that separated the land where they were with the one that was right in front of them. It was a long way to swim, or at least for those who couldn't fly. The relatives were going to rest a bit before getting into the water so they could continue on their way. But before even lying down or sitting down, Enti decided to get everyone's attention. Enti, what do you think you're doing? Who told you that you could rest? He shouted, quite annoyed. Reiku, Enti, he said, calling his attention, we must rest, even if it is just for a few minutes, or we will not have the strength to cross the lake. Enti, strength, he shouted, quite annoyed. You are talking to me about strength. What would someone as weak as you know about strength? Reiku just remained silent, while everyone looked at Enti with some fear, but he just looked at them all angrily while Tiamat kept her serious face, and then the leader of the pack approached the lake and began to enter it, starting to swim. Enti, if I can, so can you. With that, all the relatives began to enter the water, while those who could fly carried some on their swords or claws to cross the great lake more easily. Tabitha, okay Tiamat, I'll see you on the other side, she said, taking Issei in her claws to get up while starting to cross the lake. Lisbeth, Mom, I'm so scared, she said while hugging her mother. Tiamat, calm down daughter, you'll see that everything will be fine, she said, transforming into a dragon. So she entered the water like the rest of the missing relatives. Enti had been the first to reach the shore, as well as Reiku and the rest of the relatives who followed him. Tabitha had landed next to Issei near the shore, watching how the relatives began to arrive to land little by little, but they never imagined that they were going to have company. The relatives who were in the middle of the herd walked calmly, but then one felt something brush one of his legs. Family member 1, wow, what was that? He asked, upset. Family member 2, what was that? He asked, confused, drawing everyone's attention. Family member 1, there is water, it moved again, he said, already scared. Family member 3, we are in the water, it is normal that. It wasn't over yet as she was pulled underwater, causing all of the family members in the water to start freaking out, and those on land to stare at that. But then the family member quickly came out of the water, revealing that she had several cuts on her body. But what she said scared them all. Familiar 3, dark family, there are dark family in the water, he screamed, terrifying everyone. But then a dark familiar shaped like an octopus jumped out of the water, biting the familiar in the face, sinking it. Everyone seeing this was truly terrified and began to swim faster to the shore in order to save themselves. But one by one they began to fall before the sharp fangs of those dark creatures. Tiamat, who was almost last, swam as fast as she could while her daughter remained clinging to her back. But then she was pushed by a relative, causing her daughter to fall into the water, and the dragon began to be pushed while she watched as her daughter tried to reach her. Tiamat, Lisbeth, he shouted, trying to reach her. Lisbeth, mommy, she also screamed, trying to swim. But then she sees a dark familiar begin to swim at high speed towards her, while Lisbeth stayed where she was because of the fear she felt, while Tiamat tried to reach her upon seeing that. Tiamat, Lisbeth, no my girl, no, she screamed as she saw how the dark familiar was getting closer and closer. The dark familiar was already just a few centimeters away from devouring the little girl, but then something happened that no one thought would happen. A white snout came out of the water, catching the dark familiar between its fangs and beginning to devour it as it submerged in the water. The dark familiar, seeing that, immediately retreated, leaving the corpses of the familiars they killed. Tiamat held her daughter with her mouth and swam to the shore as fast as she could, while all of that was seen by an Enti more than shocked by what happened. "Reiku, all this is because of you, Enti," he said angrily, and then went to help the relatives who were in the water, dragging them to the shore so they would be safe while Enti stood there. He saw several relatives dead in the water. Chapter 8. All the relatives were exhausted and at the same time terrified to see how the majority of the pack had died in front of their eyes. Enti only kept watching what was happening, but he didn't care about that at all. All he wanted was to get to the valley, and he was willing to sacrifice what was left of the pack to do so. So without further ado, he began to abruptly lift the relatives in order to continue moving forward, and all under the gaze of Tiamat, who was very angry at what Enti was doing. "Enti, come on, useless people, we must continue," he said, almost shouting. "Can't you hear? Get up," he shouted, kicking a relative to get him to stand up. "Tiamat, let them rest," he said, pushing Enti. "They are too tired, and most of us have died there," he shouted, pointing to the lake. "Enti, who do you think you are to push me and challenge me?" he said, annoyed, looking at Tiamat as he released a little of his power. "Tiamat, someone who wants us all to reach the valley safely has already saved him," she said. "It would be without being intimidated by him." "Enti, I'll have to put you in your place, giant iguana," he said as he prepared to attack her. "Liz, Mom, don't do it, it could hurt you," she said, hugging her leg. "Tiamat, calm down, little one, I'll be fine, and I'm doing this to make sure you're safe," she said as she moved her away from her a little with her paw. "Gardevoir, I'll take care of her, Tiamat," he said, hugging the little girl. "Tabitha, good luck in the fight." Tiamat nodded and began to walk slowly towards Enti, who was still waiting for her, until the dragon stood about 4 meters away from him, facing him, while the other relatives gathered around them waiting for the fight to start. The difference in size was very large, with Tiamat being bigger than Enti, but despite that, Enti was much stronger than her. But the dragon was not going to back down. She was going to stand firm against him, especially for her daughter. Without warning, Enti threw himself at Tiamat, knocking her down. The dragon got up quickly, but Enti climbed on top of her and began to scratch her back, going through her scales as well as drawing some blood. The blue dragon tried to get him off until she showed herself from behind, crushing him. She got up quickly, seeing Enti lying there on the ground. She was going to start chewing him with her fangs, but Enti moved quickly, causing her to only take rocks into her mouth. "Enti, that's the best you've got, girl," he said mockingly as he threw himself at her again. Both fought non-stop, but the one who had the advantage in the fight was Enti, who did not have a single scratch, and Tiamat was all hurt, but still fought in order to protect her daughter. But what the Dragon Queen did not count on was that Enti would use one of his most deadly techniques by spitting a large amount of fire from his mouth, hitting her full on, causing a huge explosion. A large curtain of smoke was present in the place where Tiamat was, but when it dissipated, the aforementioned could be seen in her human form lying on the ground with several wounds and burns. "Enti, you see, girl," he said, approaching her and putting his foot on her chest, exerting pressure, causing her to begin to sink into the ground. "You are nothing before me." Tiamat tried to get up, but it was useless. Enti was much stronger than her, and she was very injured, but she would still continue fighting for her daughter. Enti, seeing that she was willing to continue fighting, just kicked her, making her stand in front of her group. Her daughter just proceeded to let go of Gardevoir and hug her mother while she stayed to the side with the others. "Enti, okay, we must continue now," he said in a demanding tone, causing what was left of the pack to start moving forward. "Reiku, Enti, she's right, we should rest if we want to." "Enti, as I command, Reiku will do," he said as he walked. Reiku just stood there watching Enti walk away while the pack followed him, and then turned around to see how Gardevoir and his people stayed trying to help Tiamat. But then Liz turned to look at him. Reiku, seeing his face, could see how the tears were coming out non-stop. But he just continued on his way while he began to think if following Enti was right. Tiamat was just trying to get up with the help of her companions while her daughter tried to guide her since her eyesight was bad. But what they didn't know is that a large figure had come out of the water that began to follow them, keeping their distance. Chapter 9. Mountainous Area Night. you could see how the smiling clouds covered the night sky, indicating that it was about to rain and the lightning was present in that area. But if we focus more on a part of that mountainous area, we can see a group of familiars walking very carefully so as not to hurt Tiamat more than she was. The whole group walked slowly and very calmly until they heard what they thought was a roar. "Tabitha, what was that?" she asked as Issei poked his head out of the ground. "Gardevoy, it seems that it came from over there," he said while hugging Liz. Tiamat, "Well, we'll have to go investigate," she said, somewhat tired while being helped by Tabitha. "Issei, go investigate. Are you crazy? Look at the state you're in." Tiamat, "I know, but for now it's the only option we have left." After seeing that the dragon was right, everyone began to walk very carefully in order to avoid what seemed to be an enemy, but after everyone poked their heads out, they only saw that it was no one else and no one less than Reiku, who looked just as injured as Tiamat. Saying that they were impressed to see him was an understatement. But they began to come out little by little, making Reiku become alert. "Tabitha, hey, calm down, Reiku, we are not enemies," she said, making Reiku calm down a little. Gardevoy, "Hey, what happened to you?" Reiku, "Auntie, I left me like this, after having challenged him to a fight in which I had no chance." "Now get away from me," he shouted, causing them to get a little further away from him. "Issei, calm down, there's no need to shout at us." At that point they saw that it started to rain and they began to look around for shelter until they saw a cave nearby and began to walk to where the cave was, leaving Reiku alone. "Tiamat, if you change your mind, come with us to the cave," she said before Tabitha led her to the cave. They all entered the cave, seeing that it was somewhat dark but dry, suitable for them to be there to rest a little. They proceeded to settle in while the rain began to make itself present in that entire area of the mountains until they heard a noise outside the cave, seeing that it was Reiku, who tried to continue on his way until he fell in front of the cave, drawing everyone's attention and making little Liz come out of the cave to help him. "Tiamat, Liz comes back here," she said, watching her daughter come out of the cave. "Liz, hey, do you want me to help you find out?" she asked, standing in front of Reiku. "Reiku, what do you want from me, girl?" "Liz, I just want to help," she said, taking one of Reiku's feet. "Now come on, get up." Reiku proceeded to get up and start walking to the cave with the girl, being seen by the others, who were somewhat impressed by that. But then they see how Reiku separates himself from the girl and starts walking to another part of the cave away from them, while the little girl walked towards her mother, who hugged her. "Tiamat, do you remember who your daughter is?" she asked, watching Reiku lay down on a rock to rest. "Liz, it was Mom. Now he is one of us," she said, and then took one of the herbs that were in the cave. "I'm going to give him this." After saying that, she began to walk to where Reiku was, while the others looked at her with some astonishment, while Tiamat had a smile on her face. But that smile went away when she remembered that albino dinosaur who had rescued her daughter. After remembering that, she felt a small treacherous tear come out of her eyes as she watched her daughter approach Reiku. "Liz, look, my mom used to put this herb on the wounds that I later caused," she said, looking at Reiku, who was serious. "It will hurt a little, but your wounds will heal," she said, putting the herbs on Reiku's wounds, making him grunt and then calm down a little. "Reiku, why does your mother do that?" "Liz, what thing?" Reiku, "Giving them false hope." "Liz, hope is what brought us here." Reiku, "I should let them accept their fates, just as I accept mine." "Liz, and what is your destiny?" Reiku, "Dying in these mountains. This is what it must be like, girl." Liz, "Mr. Reiku, if dying is what you want, it is your decision, not your destiny," she said, looking the legendary familiar in the eyes. "I met someone who decided to give his life to protect me. He could have left me, but it was his decision." After saying that, he proceeded to return to his mother and companions, who were already ready to get some sleep, while Reiku stayed thinking about the little girl's words, and then he too fell asleep without any of them knowing that they were being watched from afar by a large figure with crimson eyes, who decided to look for a place to take shelter from the rain. The next morning, the relatives could be seen continuing to walk through the mountain area. Tiamat was already feeling a little better from her wounds and could already walk on her own. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at an area that seemed to be the pass to leave the mountain area, although they were somewhat shocked to see what followed. To say that they were impressed was an understatement, since in front of them was what was the entrance to a large labyrinth that seemed to be the exit from the mountain area. "Reiku, Okay, now we just have to cross this to get to the valley. Tiamat, wait, we just have to cross this to get to the valley? Reiku, that's right. Tabitha, okay, we just need to fly a little bit and… Reiku, I'm sorry but I can't do that, he said, drawing everyone's attention. The wind has a kind of anti-aircraft security against any attempt to fly, and you will receive a huge shock that will leave you asleep for a month. Goichi, and if I dig a tunnel deep enough? Reiku, this land is not just land. Below this, more specifically 50 centimeters deep, there is a kind of very hard solid rock. It would be impossible for you to dig a tunnel. Gardevoir, and is there any way around it? Reiku, it would take us a week to go east and twice as long to go west. Tiamat, then we have no choice but to enter the labyrinth. Reiku, that's right, but be very careful since you can see many creatures inside that could attack us. Also, always stay together, these walls can change position, he said, scaring everyone. Just like that, everyone proceeded to enter the labyrinth, being led by Reiku while they were followed by the being that was watching them in the mountain area, not knowing that the labyrinth was going to test some members of that group in addition to facing the dragon's greatest nightmare. Chapter 10. Tiamat and company walked through the narrow paths of the labyrinth. Reiku was at the front of the group, directing them through the narrow corridors of the labyrinth while staying alert, as he could sense that they were not alone in that place, as well as feeling that they were being followed, and boy was he wrong, as several huge figures could be seen moving along the walls of the labyrinth quickly and stealthily. Reiku, don't go away and don't be fooled, this labyrinth is not like the others. Tabitha, what do you mean? Reiku, this labyrinth can take you by surprise if you're not alert. I couldn't finish speaking as a wall of the labyrinth moved, separating Gardevoir, Goichi and Liz from Tiamat, Tabitha and Reiku. Tiamat, Liz, she screamed while hitting the wall. But then they heard the walls of the labyrinth begin to change, causing the relatives to start running to avoid being crushed by the walls that moved, blocking paths and opening new ones until it stopped, causing the relatives to stop running to get some air. Tiamat, my daughter, she said while hitting the wall, I have to go back for her, I have to go back. Reiku, Tiamat, there is no way back, the only thing left for us to do is move forward. Tiamat, but… Reiku, Tiamat, if you trust your daughter, you should know that it is okay to let her find her own way, and that she is with Goichi and Gardevoir. Tiamat, sigh okay. After saying that, Reiku, Tabitha and she began to run through the labyrinth while the blue-haired girl thought about her daughter and saw if she was okay. In another part of the labyrinth, you could see/read how Gardevoir, Goichi and Liz were on the ground. All three were unconscious thanks to a good, big hit that one of the walls of the labyrinth had given them, until little by little they began to regain consciousness until they were 100% in all their senses. Gardevoir, what happened? He asked while holding his head. Goichi, I don't know, I just remember that something hit us, and he said before the three of them remembered what happened. Liz, the wall, she said, turning to look at the wall that hit them, it moved. Everyone saw the wall until they heard how the labyrinth continued moving until it stopped, revealing new paths as well as closing others. Gardevoir, this is what Reiku meant, he said, drawing the attention of the two. The labyrinth is moving. Liz, a moving maze? Goichi, why the hell would they do something like that? Gardevoir, I don't know, I wasn't the one who created it. Liz, now what are we going to do? Gardevoir, for now, find a way to return to the others, he said, taking Liz's hand and starting to walk. Goichi, hey, wait for me, he said, starting to follow them. So the three of them began to walk through the labyrinth, trying to find another way out of it, although it was very difficult for them. For almost the entire day they were walking through the labyrinth without any result of finding a way out. In fact, it seemed that they were further away from finding it. The night was beginning to fall over the labyrinth, so the three of them decided to rest a little. Liz, do you think we can find our way out of this maze? Gardevoir, of course we will, little one, we just have to stick together and… I don't finish saying it because I heard a very loud roar that put them on alert and filled them with fear. But then they started to hear some footsteps that started to get louder and louder, implying that it was getting closer to them. The three relatives started to look around for a place to hide until they saw a hole under one of the walls of the labyrinth. So all three of them got in there, and then covered themselves with the grass that was on the wall of the labyrinth. Liz, I'm so scared, she said while hugging Gardevoir. Issei, don't worry, little Liz, I assure you that we will be fine. I don't finish as they began to hear something approaching. Gardevoir moved the grass that kept them hidden a little to see that everything was calm, but then they see something stop in front of them, scaring them. They see that it was a metal leg. But they see that it is not just one but several that began to advance, and each step they took was a chilling sound that they made. Then they see how whatever it was began to move away, and then they hear something break to fall silent. Liz, could he be gone? So the three began to come out of their hiding place. They saw that there was nothing, so they completely came out of their hiding place without realizing that it had been a big mistake, since above them there was a large figure that stared at them, and then moved stealthily to get behind him, and then stopped hanging on the wall, and fell on the ground. Standing up, drawing the attention of the three, the relatives began to see how the figure began to rise, revealing its great size, and then approached the moonlight, while giving a roar, scaring the relatives. Gardevoir, a penitent, she said, terrified at seeing the great nightmare of the dragons. The penitent only gave a great and fearsome roar, causing them to start running, while the penitent began to follow them without any of them realizing that a large figure was watching them, and then following them, or more specifically the penitent. Chapter 11. With Tiamat's group, they were wandering through the narrow walls of the labyrinth while watching how they moved. Reiku remained alert and led the group with great confidence, as if he already knew where to go, and it was not a lie. After several trips it was obvious that he knew the way as well as the new corridors that the labyrinth could open. At the exact time in the exact place. Tabitha, are you okay, Tiamat? I asked, seeing how worried the blue-haired girl was. Tiamat, I'm very worried about my daughter. What if something happened to her, or maybe... Reiku, calm down, she's with Gardevoir and Issei, he said, drawing the blue-haired girl's attention also. As I could see, she's brave, she surely knows how to take good care of herself. Tabitha, he's right, Tiamat. Besides, we have to hope that we can find them along the way, said the strong blue-haired girl firmly. And so they continued on their way with the hope of being able to meet up with the rest of the group as well as find a way out of that infernal labyrinth. For almost 2 hours they were walking through the entire labyrinth until they finally managed to get out of that infernal labyrinth and see what they had in front of them, which was their destination, the Great Valley. Reiku, finally we managed to reach the valley, he said, seeing how the place was intact. Tabitha, I'm surprised this place is still intact, she said before seeing how Tiamat looked at the labyrinth with concern. Calm down, Tiamat, they will find a way out. Tiamat, but she's my daughter and... Reiku, I'll go look for her, he said as he walked past them. I'm the only one here who has a better chance of finding the others. Tabitha, but Mr. Reiku. Reiku, let's not talk anymore, he said, ready to enter. Reiku began to walk to the entrance of the labyrinth to find Tiamat's daughter and the rest of the group until he stopped a few meters from the entrance, listening to something approaching. Tiamat and Tabitha also heard it, so they stood next to Reiku waiting to see what it was. The Dragon Queen hoped it was her daughter and the rest of the group, but in the end they only saw that it was the pack being guided by Enti. Enti, well, just look at who we have here. Tiamat, Enti, you damn son of a, she tried to say, trying to throw herself against him until she was held by Tabitha. Enti, you sure want me to mop the floor with you again, don't you? Reiku, Enti, there was a group trapped in the labyrinth, they haven't been seen. Enti, this fool's daughter, he said looking at Tiamat. Tiamat, La showed? Enti, that's right, they were being chased by the last penitent left in the labyrinth, he said, scaring the three of them. Tabitha, and are they okay? Enti, I don't know, I took advantage of that to get the pack out of there. Tiamat, you are a damn one, she said, throwing herself against Enti. Enti only proceeded to knock down Tiamat, and then tried to kill her, but Reiku attacked him with force and began to bite him with great force and was then pushed by Enti while both stared at each other. Reiku, I've wanted to teach you a lesson for a long time. You never looked out for the good of others, only your own, and as a result half of the pack is dead, he said, annoyed. Enti, oops, I'm going to start crying, he said mockingly. Reiku only proceeded to give Enti a swipe at the face, causing him to charge at him and end up on top of him. He tried to bite him, but Reiku pushed him away, causing him to fall next to him. both of them got up and stared at each other while roaring at each other. Entei tried to attack Reiku, but he pushed him away with his body, which was covered in lightning, causing him to fall paralyzed next to him. Reiku, because of you, several of us died. You are trash, Entei. Those words infuriated Entei, who threw dirt in his face to distract him and spit a flame of fire, causing him to fly against a rock. Entei was going to proceed to end Reiku's life until he was pushed by someone. He was furious about that. But that anger changed to total impact when he saw who it was, since it was none other than his younger sister Sukun. She is really sad to see her older brother's behavior, so she just shook her head and proceeded to help Reiku get up and then head to the center of the valley where they could all rest from the heavy trip. Entei was really shocking. He never believed that his sister would attack him, and that she passed him by as well as the pack. Everyone just followed Reiku and Sukun until they heard something. Mommy, it was heard throughout the valley. Mommy, it was heard again. Tiamat, that voice, is it? At that, everyone turns around, seeing the entrance to the labyrinth in the distance, watching Liz, Gardevoir, and Goiche leave this room in a hurry. Tiamat, Liz, my baby, he said, almost screaming, running to her. Liz, Mommy? Tiamat, Liz. But then they saw how the penitent who was chasing his daughter, Gardevoir, and Goiche, also came out of the entrance of the labyrinth. All the family members were scared to see him because that penitent was 3 times bigger than the others. Gardevoir carried Liz and ran faster while Tiamat quickened his pace to catch up with her before the penitent did, but what no one knew was that they weren't the only ones who had arrived in the valley. Chapter 12. The pack of relatives began to back away as they watched in fear as the penitent approached at full speed. Gardevoir tried to run as fast as he could to save his friend's daughter. Tiamat tried to reach them before the penitent, but then she saw Gardevoir stumble, releasing little Liz. The little girl tried to help Gardevoir get up, but then she saw how the penitent was about to eat them. The two of them just closed their eyes while the others saw that. But Tiamat didn't want that. She didn't want to, but something happened, something that no one understood. The penitent had been thrown against a large rock, causing it to fall on top of him, trapping him. Nobody understood what happened, but then in front of Gardevoir and Liz something strange began to appear, as if it were a large chameleon, but it was not. It was a being that no one had seen except Tiamat and little Liz. It was the Indominus Rex. Tiamat was very surprised to see that the Indominus Rex was alive, while Liz was very happy to see him again. But she could notice that he could not walk well, and that was because he had not completely healed from the burn he had suffered in the forest of the relatives. The Indominus only proceeded to give a great roar to go to the penitent, in which he managed to free himself. The penitent gave a great roar but was silenced by the Indominus, who gave him a powerful blow with his tail, but at the moment of giving it he supported his weight on his wounded foot, falling to the ground. The penitent had recovered from that blow, and seemed to be very upset by that blow, so he tried to attack the Indominus Rex, but it quickly got up and proceeded to mortar its neck, starting to make it back up until it threw it into a lake. The Indominus began to back away little by little while it saw how the penitent was heading towards it at high speed. When it was a few centimeters away with its tail, it hit some rocks that fell under the penitent, causing it to slip and fall to the ground. The Indominus Rex proceeded to take Liz and Gardevoir with its claws and go to where the other relatives were, but in that the penitent mounted on it, beginning to scratch its back, causing the Indominus to release Lisbeth and Gardevoir. The penitent was ready to inject his poison into the Indominus, but he stepped back, crushing the penitent with a claw in his back. The Indominus was going to take Liz and Gardevoir again, but in that it was rammed by the penitent, causing it to fly against some trees that fell on top of it. Tiamat, I can't stay here while that being saves my daughter again, he said while blue flames surrounded him. The penitent approached the Indominus slowly and threateningly while exposing his stinger, ready to finish it once and for all, but then a rock fell in front of him, stopping him. The penitent turned his gaze to where the rock came from, seeing that the cause was Tiamat in her dragon form. The penitent was heading towards her at high speed, but in that Tiamat threw herself at him, pulling him down while she stepped back and watched as the penitent got up very upset and was going to attack her, but Tiamat used her tail to hit his legs, knocking him down again while spitting a large flame of blue fire on his back, causing the penitent to roar loudly at that. But in that the penitent tried to attack her with his stinger, causing her to step back, and that was taken advantage of by the one who bit her leg, knocking her down. The penitent was going to stick his stinger, but instead he received a tail slap in the face from the Indominus Rex, which was face to face with him, while they stared at each other. The penitent roared at him with great force, but then Tiamat kicked him, causing him to start rolling down the small hill where they were fighting. "Tiamat, thank you very much," she said while receiving a nod from the Indominus. "Liz, Mom," I shouted, arriving where they were. "Tiamat, we have to get out of here, Liz." "Gardevoir, but what will happen to him?" I asked, seeing how the Indominus Rex went to where the penitent fell. "Tiamat, he'll be fine. For now we have to get out of here." After saying that, he took Lisbeth and Gardevoir and began to climb the hill in order to get to where the other relatives were. But then they heard a loud roar. Everyone turned their gaze to where the roar came from, seeing a large creature which stood face to face with the Indominus Rex. Everyone except the Indominus Rex was truly terrified, since it was a dark familiar, and not just any one but one of the strongest. Then another roar was heard, revealing another dark familiar similar to the previous one, only with black marks marking its torso. Then the roar of the penitent was heard, which was getting up as if nothing happened. Everyone saw how the Indominus Rex was being surrounded by them, but it showed no fear or anything like that. Instead, it gave a great and powerful roar as the three of them threw themselves to attack it under the sight of all the familiars. Chapter 13. The Indominus Rex was now on the ropes. Now he not only had to deal with the penitent, now he had to fight against two supreme-level dark familiars. The Indominus Rex saw how he was surrounded by those three dark and bloodthirsty beings. The first to attack was the penitent, who tried to reach for the Indominus Rex's neck, but he reacted quickly and swiped at him, moving him away from him, and then seeing how one of the familiars went to him at high speed and bit him on the neck, causing the Indominus Rex to roar in pain. All the relatives, seeing that, were quite worried about the dinosaur, especially Tiamat and her daughter. But then they see how the Indominus Rex began to defend itself from the attacks of the first dark relative by giving several claws to the shark's neck, forcing it to let go. But then the other shark bit it on the shoulder, causing the Indominus Rex to respond with another bite on the shark's neck. Then the penitent climbs on it, while the other shark bit the shoulder of the Indominus Rex, which tried to defend itself as best it could, clawing, biting, hitting with its tail and head-butting, but they managed to knock it down. "Liz, Mom, please help him," she begged her mother, who was still transformed into a dragon. "Please save him, save him." Tiamat didn't know what to do, but then she saw how one of the sharks grabbed Indominus Rex by the nape of the neck and proceeded to crash him against a large rock and then lift him up. Indominus tried to bite the shark's neck, but the other one rammed him, throwing him to the ground again, to let the penitent get on him, while he prepared his stinger to finish him off once and for all. But when the penitent was about to kill the Indominus Rex, but Tiamat rammed him with great force, causing the two of them to start rolling down the hill. The Indominus Rex, seeing that, got up from the ground quickly to proceed to head but one of the sharks, while hitting the other with his tail, starting to return the beating they gave him. Tiamat and the penitent had stopped rolling and were now standing up face to face while growling, but then the penitent tried to attack Tiamat with a quick movement. But she was faster, and used her wings to rise a little in the air, dodging the penitent's attack, and then bit him on the tail, and sent him flying against some rocks, causing them to fall on top of him. Behind her, the Indominus Rex was defending itself very well from the dark familiars, and was very upset. He gave one a strong scratch on the house, knocking it down, and then headbutted the other, moving it away from him. But the other shark took advantage of that distraction and grabbed it by the tail to pull it and throw it against some trees. The two went to it quickly. The Indominus was just getting up until it received a strong blow to the face, making it come back to its five senses, returning the blow with more force. But the other shark hit it again so that the Indominus Rex would return it again. In that, the first dark familiar that appeared tried to hit it again, but the Indominus Rex took its fist with its teeth with great force to proceed to lift it and throw it with great force to the ground. But then the other shark got on top of him, starting to hit him with tremendous force, while the Indominus Rex tried to get it off, but the dark familiar held on with great force, hitting him very hard in the face. But then the Indominus Rex managed to catch the shark's arm with his teeth and then get it off him and throw it to the ground with force to try to crush it with his foot. But the shark moved quickly to avoid that. But before he could do anything, the Indominus bit his arm hard. The shark hit him hard to make him let go, but he didn't wait for the Indominus to throw him away, causing him to crash into some trees. He was going to try to get up, but the Indominus tried to ram him with great force. The shark moved quickly, avoiding that, and when he was going to hit him, the Indominus Rex hit him with his tail and then got on top of him and started scratching the dark familiar's torso until he tore his skin, muscles, and organs, killing him in a bloodthirsty way. The Indominus Rex had given a great roar in victory, but then he heard something, a roar of pain, so turning to where he came from, seeing Tiamat being humiliated by the penitent. But before the Indominus Rex tried to go help her, he received a powerful blow to the face from the last familiar, knocking him down. Without further ado, the Indominus got up, giving him a strong claw on the face, and then biting the dark familiar's shoulder, and starting to push him with great force while enduring the blows that the dark familiar gave him. Thanks to his strength, he made the dark familiar collide with the penitent, who is on top of Tiamat ready to kill her. So both rolled until they fell off the hill. The Indominus Rex gave a great roar as he watched the penitent, and the dark familiar tried to get up to continue fighting. Only now his rival was only going to be the Indominus Rex, which was heading towards them at great speed while leaving behind Tiamat, who was injured and very amazed to see that the Indominus Rex had saved her from being killed by the penitent. Chapter 14. The Indominus Rex and the penitent stared at each other while behind the hybrid dinosaur was the great dragon queen Tiamat, who was quite impressed by what the Indominus Rex did, which had given a great roar heading to attack the penitent, who did the same. But the Indominus managed to grab him by the neck, starting to make him back off and then lift him up and throw him with great force, causing a small crater to be created. The penitent quickly got up from the ground, evading an attack from the hybrid dinosaur, which received a large scratch on the face from the chilling scorpion on the face. The penitent took advantage of that to try to stick his stinger into the Indominus' neck, but the hybrid dinosaur moved quickly, avoiding that, although unfortunately the penitent managed to stick his stinger into the side of the hybrid dinosaur's body, which gave a loud roar, and then gave it a big swipe at the penitent's face, making him step back and then saw how the monster's stinger was stuck in his side, which continued to inject him with poison until he decided to pull it out, giving a grunt because of that. The Indominus Rex moved quickly, dodging a swipe from the penitent, and then returning that failed blow by throwing it to the ground, taking advantage of that to bite its neck hard, starting to push it, causing it to go through some trees and large rocks, and then slamming it against the ground, preventing it from getting up. But in that, the penitent took the opportunity to regenerate the stinger that he had stuck in the Indominus's body to re-inject his venom into the Indominus Rex's chest, causing it to release the penitent and give a loud roar, as well as releasing some blood from its mouth as it moved away from the penitent, giving it a chance to get up. "Liz, Mom, you have to help him," she said on the verge of tears as she watched the Indominus Rex begin to stagger due to the poison. "Tiamat, damn it, I have no strength left," she said, trying to get up. The penitent tried to take advantage of that to attack the hybrid dinosaur, but when he wanted to hit it, the Indominus reacted quickly and took the penitent's hand with its fangs and then pulled it, knocking the scorpion down, but the latter counterattacked by giving it a strong tail whip and then holding it by the neck and slamming it face first into a large rock, breaking it and knocking it down. The large scorpion was going to attack it, but the hybrid dinosaur raised one of its legs to send it flying against some trees. The Indominus Rex tried to stand up, but his vision was beginning to blur, and he felt his strength starting to leave his body. The penitent took advantage of this and launched himself against the Indominus, ramming it and sending it flying and crashing against the hard ground. The hybrid dinosaur tried to stand up, but it was almost impossible. The poison that was beginning to run through his blood was beginning to take effect to the point that he could barely stay standing. "Tabitha, how long can he hold out?" I asked seriously as I watched him barely stand up. "Issei, I don't know, but it seems like I was barely able to stay standing." "Reiku, it seems that the penitent's poison is starting to take effect," he said seriously, seeing how the great white dinosaur could barely stand. The Indominus Rex and the penitent stared at each other. The hybrid dinosaur moved his head, trying to still be in his sixth senses, and then threw himself against the monstrous scorpion, but it moved quickly, climbing the wall, while the Indominus crashed against the hard and rocky wall, and then looked above him, noticing how the penitent launched himself at him, causing the two to fall off a large cliff, worrying Tiamat. The penitent tried to hold on to the wall, but it was almost impossible since he could barely do so, and the Indominus Rex managed to hold on to him in one way or another until both were in the water. The first to get up was the penitent, who shook himself a little and then gave a loud roar to the Indominus, who could barely get up, although it was a bit difficult for him, just as his vision was also starting to get blurry and he was also having trouble breathing. "Liz, I have to help him," she said, starting to go down the cliff. The Indominus Rex tried to go against the penitent, who did the same, both biting hard on the neck trying to make each other back off. But the one who began to lose ground was the hybrid dinosaur, which began to be hit and scratched by the penitent, who grabbed him by the neck with both claws, throwing him to the ground, making the Indominus begin to roar loudly in pain. The penitent held the Indominus by the nape of the neck with his teeth, and then slammed him headfirst into the wall, breaking it all up. In a desperate attempt, the Indominus Rex tried to free itself from the hold the penitent was giving it, but the penitent managed to knock it down, and then put its claws on the Indominus's neck, which tried to get up without any success, since not only did the penitent exert force to prevent this attempt, he also felt as if poison was beginning to take over every part of his body. "Liz, no, I have to help him, I need to help him," she said while blue flames surrounded her. The Indominus tried to get up to continue fighting, but then he saw how the penitent was about to end his life by bringing his stinger to his neck. But before he could stab him in the back, a strange sound was made. The penitent turned in the direction it came from, seeing a small 4-meter blue dragon heading towards him at high speed. She climbed onto his face and began to scratch him, while the penitent tried to take it away. "Tabitha, where did that little blue dragon come from?" "Reiku, I don't know, but it's a good thing he showed up to help that albino thing." "Gardevoy, Tiamat, what's wrong with you?" he said, drawing everyone's attention, noticing the great concern of the great blue dragon. "Tiamat, it's just that blue dragon, she's my daughter," she said, shocking everyone with that detail until they were taken out of their thoughts by a loud roar. In the fight, the penitent was already getting angry, so he tried to use his stinger on her, but then the Indominus Rex quickly got up from the ground and bit the back of the penitent's neck to crash him with a large rock, while little Liz placed herself on top of his back. The hybrid dinosaur proceeded to bite the penitent's head, starting to pass him against the cliff and more riches, while Liz bit and scratched his body as well as spit small blue fireballs against the penitent. "Gardevoy, it's incredible the coordination those two have," she said, very surprised. "Goiche, you're right, it's just something incredible," he said, the same as the Pokemon. In the fight, the Indominus and Liz already had the penitent cornered, who was quite injured but still got up staring at his opponents, but could notice how the Indominus was beginning to lose the strength he had taken to protect little Liz. The penitent with a quick movement went against Liz, who could not react to evade the attack. But then the Indominus Rex rammed him with force, knocking him down while biting his neck with great force, trying to pierce his tough skin. But the penitent began to stick his stinger several times into the Indominus's body, making him grunt loudly while he began to feel that he was about to fall from the poison. He gave a last effort to pierce the penitent's skin to proceed to break his neck, killing him. "Nti, did he kill him?" "Reiku, that's right, I did it." In that, all the relatives began to celebrate for the victory that Ian had achieved his protectors, but in that they heard how something fell and saw the body of the Indominus Rex lying in the water while the blood came out of his wounds and felt his eyes heavy. Liz approached him quickly to try to help him, but she was not the only one. Tiamat quickly went down the cliff to help him while he was followed by his travel group. They all rolled to the Indominus to try to help him, but in the rainy sky they saw a small light that illuminated them. They did not understand why, but that light transmitted calm and peace. But from one moment to another a large and strong current of air dispersed the great storm, letting see the great shine that decorated the sky, while something began to descend until touching the ground gently. Nobody knew what it was until the shine dissipated, letting see how. Chapter 15 Season Finale. All the familiars covered their eyes due to the great intensity of the light that was illuminating the entire valley. All the familiars did not understand why this light appeared out of nowhere, but they put that question/thought aside when they felt an enormous power appear. That power was absurdly enormous. So enormous that it could even compete with the dragon god of dreams himself, the Great Red. The light began to dissipate, causing the familiars to begin to regain visibility. Being greatly surprised to see who was in front of them, it was the Celestial class familiar. The only one of his kind, as well as being the protector of all the familiars, it was Aslan the lion. "Liz, Aslan," she shouted happily as she ran to him to hug him, while the lion smiled. "Liz, I thought you were a victim of what happened in the familiar forest." "Aslan, Don't worry, I'll always find a way to get back to you, he said, looking at the other family members and the Dragon Queen, who were very impressed by his appearance. Liz, but Aslan, you are bigger than the last time I saw you. Aslan, ha ha, every time you grow I will grow, he said while his smile continued to show on his face. Tiamat, Aslan, we need your help, she said, calling the lion's attention. Well, he needs your help, she said, pointing to the Indominus Rex, who was still lying on the ground taking deep breaths, showing how tired he was. Nti, he is beyond saving. I say we take pity on him and end his life. Reiku, how can you say something like that, Nti? Nti, I'm just telling the truth. He won't be able to survive the bites the penitent gave him. Guiche, it's obvious that you're the worst, my friend, he said, quite annoyed, as he lifted his head off the ground. Tabitha, we can't let him die. After all, he saved us. Nti, but we can't do the same for him. The best thing would be to kill him to end his suffering. Liz, no, I won't let you try to hurt him, she said as she stood in front of Nti to prevent him from getting close to the Indominus. While the relatives began to discuss what they could do with the Indominus Rex, Aslan approached the aforementioned, who was trying to stay awake and endure the poison that ran through his blood throughout his body. The great lion stared into the crimson eyes of the Indominus Rex, noticing the pain, suffering, sadness, and hatred. All those negative things in him, but that was not the only thing he saw in those eyes: peace, affection, love. So without further ado he tore the ground with his claws, but the strangest thing was that on the Indominus Rex's chest appeared what seemed to be a mark of a claw that shone golden, and the great white dinosaur gave a great roar of pain, calling everyone's attention. Aslan tore the ground again, causing another mark to appear on the side of his body. He did it again, this time appearing on his face, and then gave a great roar, causing the Indominus Rex's body to be enveloped in a golden glow. Tiamat, Aslan, what have you done? She asked, trying to find out what he did. Aslan, I just freed him from his chains, he said while looking at the golden glow. In that, everyone saw how the glow began to calm down, revealing that it was beginning to take a smaller form, more specifically the form of a man. No one understood what was happening until the glow disappeared, revealing a young man with white skin, silver hair, and average musculature, causing almost all the female relatives to fall unconscious after a 10th-degree nasal discharge. But Tiamat already knew who it was, and to say that she was shocked was an understatement, since right in front of her was the largest carrier and companion that Drake could have had. That young man was Issei Hyoudou. Tiamat, Issei Hyoudou, she said in a whisper, but still being heard by everyone. Gardevoir, wait, did you say Issei Hyoudou, the strongest Serkyuutei of all? She asked, surprised to have in front of her the strongest Serkyuutei of all generations. No one could believe that right in front of them was the strongest bearer of the great red celestial dragon, the young Issei Hyoudou. But those thoughts were put aside when they saw that he was beginning to wake up. He began to get up little by little, as well as revealing his well-worked torso, causing female mechas to start to blush several times, making the Gremory's hair look ridiculous, while the males envied him for having such a body that almost seemed like it was made by God himself. But the moment he was standing, he revealed that his eyes had also changed, since they were no longer brown as before, but rather kept the same crimson color with a slit pupil. Issei, but where am I? What happened? He asked, looking at his family. How did I get here? No one knew what to answer. It seemed that he didn't remember absolutely anything of what happened these last few weeks. But then Liz approached the silver-haired young man, making him look at her with great confusion. But then the little girl gave him a big hug while small tears escaped from her eyes. Everyone was surprised by that. But they also saw how Issei held his head while grimacing in pain. The silver-haired boy didn't know what was happening until several memories came to his mind. Those memories were when he was transformed into the Indominus Rex. So without further ado, he hugged the little girl while trying to calm her down. Issei, I'm glad you're okay, little one, he said while caressing the little girl's long blue hair. Liz, I'm glad you're okay, Mr. Dinosaur, she said with a smile as she hid her face in the young man's chest. Everyone began to approach where the prehistoric hybrid was while whispering things about him like, what will it be? Will it be human? Is it some kind of familiar not seen before? Will it be some kind of dragon? Without a doubt, this young man is a true hero. Among other things, the relatives whispered as they approached the young Hyoudou, but then a loud noise took them out of their thoughts, making everyone turn their eyes to where it came from, seeing the entire valley in chaos. Gardevoy, the only place we could call home no longer exists. Where will we go now? He asked quite sadly as he looked at what was left of the valley. Issei, I think I have some idea about where we can go. 2 days later, a somewhat large ship could be seen sailing through the great ocean, while the crew of this ship were none other than the relatives who still could not process what they had to do, since they basically had to transport themselves to the human world and travel for almost 2 days trying to evade human civilization until they reached the port, where they had to knock out everyone present there and steal a ship which seemed about to set sail. Tiamat, seriously, I still can't accept the idea that we stole this ship, she said while sitting next to Issei, who was driving the ship. Aslan, oh, where do you plan to take us, boy? He said as he entered the cabin. Issei was going to answer until he saw his destination, giving a big smile, causing everyone to get confused until they decided to turn to where he was looking, seeing that it was an island which was very far from the continent. Nti, what are we doing here? Issei, this island belongs to my grandfather. Not even the government is able to enter here since my grandfather's company is private, he explained as best he could, giving an idea of what he wanted. Tabitha, and can we stay here? She asked while looking at the island. Issei, of course, after all my grandfather is waiting for us to take us to the place where he will place us. Aslan, at what point did you talk to forget it? I already remembered, he asked, and then forgot the question when he remembered when he saw the silver-haired man inside a telephone booth. Nti, you dared to reveal the existence of the supernatural to your grandfather? Issei, he already knew it, and he is trustworthy. They can torture him all they want, and he still wouldn't say a single word, he said as he began to sail the boat to the area where his grandfather was waiting for him. After a few minutes crossing the small river that connected to the ocean, Issei finally managed to visualize a port in which several people could be seen, some armed with electric weapons and others shooting tranquilizer darts, while others were checking some things on tablets. But among all of them stood out an elderly man who carried a white cane with what appeared to be a transparent orange handle which showed an insect. This man was Issei's grandfather on his mother's side, the great John Hammond. The old man smiled when he saw the ship dock and then laughed as he approached, and was followed by his workers. The Kulos were a little impressed by the arrival of their relatives, who were equally surprised to see several people present watching them. Hammond only gave an amused laugh at that, and then saw Issei getting off the ship accompanied by Tiamat and his daughter. Issei, abuelo. Hammond, Issei, he said while receiving a strong hug from his grandson. Wow, calm down, Issei, your old man is not as tough as before. Issei, I'm sorry, Grandpa, he said as he separated from him. Hammond, so these are the familiars you told me about a few hours ago. Issei, that's right, Grandpa. Hammond, well, follow me and I'll take you to see the island. Play the soundtrack all the way up, he said as he turned around and got into a car accompanied by his workers, while in another Issei got in with Tiamat, Liz and Gardevoy, and in 3 large trucks the other familiars got in ready to leave the port to go deeper into the island. They were traveling for around almost 30 minutes, seeing how beautiful it was, until they stopped near a watering hole and melted a little until they felt a slight tremor, which was repeated slowly. No one understood what was happening until they turned around and saw something they never thought they would see. It was a dinosaur. Everyone was quite impressed to see such a beautiful animal. They were so amazed that they didn't even realize that they had gotten out of the cars and trucks to get a closer look at the great herbivorous dinosaur, which was eating calmly while being watched by its family members. Issei, it's a dinosaur, he said without taking his eyes off the beautiful herbivore, while everyone began to sit on the grass while they looked at the creature with great amazement. I never thought I could see it alive. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Liz, this has always been my favorite, she said happily while looking at the dinosaur. Tiamat, how long do you think her neck is? 7 or 8 meters? Hammond, Brachiosaurus 9, he said as he approached them. Issei, 9 meters. Wow. They were going to get closer to appreciate the beautiful dinosaur until they saw how it stood up on its 2 hind legs and stretched its neck to reach and chew a leaf that was at the top of the tree. When it reached it, it dropped its front legs, creating a great tremor in the area. impressing its relatives with the great strength that the wonderful dinosaur had. "Nti, this place will definitely be our new home," he said in a whisper, amazed by the miracle that the humans made. "Issei, Grandpa, are bipeds fast?" Hammond, "Well, the Tyrannosaurus can go 60 kilometers per hour. Tiamat, Tyrannosaurus? Does he even have a Tyrannosaurus?" Hammond, "That's right." "Issei, what do you say, Grandpa?" I asked, holding him by the arm. Hammond, "We have a Tyrannosaurus." "Liz, come sit," she said while watching how Issei was going to collapse from emotion. Hammond, "My dear grandson, Miss Tiamat, little Liz and family who accompany us. I would like to welcome you to Jurassic Park." After saying that, everyone saw how large herds of herbivorous animals such as Brachiosaurus, Ankylosaurs, Triceratops, among others, were at the watering hole calmly drinking water while being watched by their relatives who were still impressed by the great miracle they achieved. "Aslan, how did I manage to do this?" he asked, still surprised. Hammond, "It was thanks to Issei," he said while watching his grandson have a big smile, and some treacherous tears came out of his eyes when seeing something as beautiful as that. Chapter 1 Season 2. After the disappearance of the great hero Issei alias the Great Red Dragon Emperor, the supernatural world entered a great panic and disaster where several houses of the underworld went out in search of him to join their clans. It was also the same with the other factions, but the most obsessed in their search were Azazel, Yasaka, Odin and Michael. Well, in Michael's case it was his sister Gabriel who had threatened her brother to tear out those beautiful white feathers one by one, and then castrate him, stick a red-hot harpoon in them where the sun does not rise, turn it several times, and then take it out along with his entrails. Michael had not been begged and got down to work without a doubt when he was in a bad mood. His sister was much scarier than Triexa himself. But returning to the previous topic, the four of them competed with great force among themselves in the search for Issei Hyoudou to the point where they stole and put false information about where he could be. Without a doubt a great and fierce rivalry had been made between those four factions, even between women Yasaka, Penemu, Gabriel and Brunhild, reaching the point where they fought, almost killing each other if it hadn't been for Odin, Michael, Azazel and little Kunu, who had gotten into the middle of the fight to separate them. But as they say, when you see a women's fight, don't get involved, because it is more than certain that you will not be saved from a fierce women's fight. While on Zerch's side, well, at first he also focused a lot on finding Issei, but upon thinking about it he decided to put it aside. After all, he knew that he deserved to be calm and at peace after everything he experienced. Plus, he understood very well how he felt when he saw that he was deceived by the girls and how Rias literally abandoned him because of her fear. After all, the same thing had happened with Grafia. Their engagement had been arranged. But he truly loved her, and when he confessed his love in the beautiful garden of the Gremory mansion, she had become nervous and fled the place, leaving Zerch's heartbroken, and despite the fact that they got married, had a child, and she tried to fix the damage she caused him, he could no longer love her as he had done in the past, and that was why he understood very well the pain that Issei felt. As for the Gremory girls, they had finally been engaged to a devil from another very respected clan, but he was very arrogant. At first they wanted to refuse that, thus challenging these people to a battle where they had lost greatly on the wedding day. They asked with all their hearts for the return of Issei to save them, as he had done with Rias in the past, but that never happened, and marrying that devil that day was the beginning of their punishment, since they were humiliated, mistreated, and even blown up by that high-class devil. He also wanted to have Rias Gremory for himself, but she had been defended tooth and nail by Zerch's and her parents. The council, knowing this, tried to take action on the matter, but only a great rise in power from Zerch's himself was enough to make the council understand that it was not a very good idea to do something against him or his family. While Rias, well, she no longer showed that warm smile and kindness that characterized her. During the days she was cold and serious without showing any emotion, looking like a living dead person, and at night she broke down in tears, hitting herself, humiliating herself and insulting herself for being a coward and having hurt her beloved ex-pawn when she had tried to heal him and heal his heart. Well, that was what happened in the supernatural world. Now we go to the human world. During this time with their relatives, they were able to get used to their new life on Isla Nublar with the dinosaurs and the people who worked there. The relatives were taken to the northern area of the island where they could be calm. Issei and Tiamat had formalized a stable relationship, and Tiamat's daughter Liz had gotten used to seeing the white hair as her new father, in addition to also getting used to living among the dinosaurs, in addition to almost always helping John Hammond in the construction of Jurassic Park with Issei and other relatives. Undoubtedly a great moment of peace that Issei took full advantage of with his new family, but unfortunately for him, this moment of peace was not going to last forever, and all thanks to rise of him and his stupid plans to recover what he says belongs to him by right. Chapter 2. It was a very quiet and beautiful day on Isla Nublar. Everything was very peaceful, and you could see several animals, dinosaurs/herbivores, roaming freely across the island. Some workers were walking close to them to analyze and study their behavior, as well as several people building the main building of the park, where the laboratories, dining rooms and visitor center were going to be located. But for now we will focus on the northern end of the island. But why the northern end? Simply put, something really special was going on there. A little blue dragon accompanied by a little monkey, a little gray wolf, and 2 white and red foxes were fleeing from a giant creature that was roaring powerfully, trying to reach them. They began to jump on rocks that crossed a small lake, but it was still not enough to gain an advantage. They tried to lose by going into a small trunk, but it was still not enough. The little blue dragon tried to use her wings, but in that the great creature swallowed her in one bite. Monkey, Liz, he screamed when he saw how his friend had been devoured. The creature began to approach them in a threatening manner while growling, revealing that it was Issei himself, or as he was now known, Indominus Rex, who had a terrifying look, causing the little babies to start trembling with fear. But then he began to cough and try to vomit what he had in his mouth, seeing that it was little Liz. Liz, let me out, she screamed as she tried to get out of Issei's mouth until she finally managed to spit it out. Issei, cough, very flaky cough, he said while coughing a little. Liz, time for revenge on him, she said, jumping on the dinosaur with her friends and starting to tickle him. Issei, no, leave me alone. Because you better not mess with someone of your height, he began to scream in an exaggerated manner while he got on his knees, and they were observed by a certain blue dragon from the bushes. Tiamat, help me, Arak, he said, falling dramatically to the ground. Red Fox, Mr. Issei, don't give up. Issei, no, he said, scaring the children, and then they all started laughing. Tiamat, okay little ones, leave him alone. Remember that today is a very special day. It is the day of courtship, she said in a flirtatious and mischievous way while rubbing her cheek against the albino dinosaurs. Issei, there's no need to go, Tiamat. We can just kiss here, he said, making the children run away to avoid seeing that scene. Tiamat, well, at least we're alone now, she said as she proceeded to get on top of the albino dino. Issei, that's right, but he said as a glow surrounded the two of them so they could take their human form. I have to go prepare the girls while you give the girls your courtship advice, he said as he stood up, causing the Dragon Queen to pout tenderly. Tiamat, that's not fair, Issei, she complained while lying on her stomach. Issei, I'm sorry, Tiamat, but you already know how things are now with the courtship day, so go with the girls while I go look for the others who are missing to take them to the place where it will be held, he said as he disappeared into the bushes. Tiamat, you're only delaying the inevitable, Issei. You won't be saved at night, she said as she walked away with a slightly grim smile. In the underworld/Gremory castle, the Gremory family could be seen gathered in the main dining room except for a certain redhead who was locked in her room with no sign of coming out for a long time. The entire Gremory family was in a rather depressive atmosphere while they ate until one of them, more than fed up with this atmosphere, hit the table hard to get up, upsetting those present with such a fright it gave them. Venilana, I'm fed up with you all. Could you please stop creating such a depressing atmosphere, she shouted angrily, and then changed to a very sad mood. I don't like being like this either. Searches, so what do you want us to do, Oka-san? There's nothing I can do to help her with what she wants. Zeoticus, you're right, love, Rias lost her chance to be with Issei. I don't blame him for what he did. After all, we all get insecure, afraid and panic when we want to confess our love to the person we love, or the other way around when the person we love declares their love to us. Xerxes, well, not me. I only felt pain when that person I loved decided to leave me alone that cold night, he said as if nothing was wrong, making a certain silver-haired girl feel bad about what he said. Zeoticus, You are another matter, Xerxes, he said, making his son a little angry. Venelana, the only thing we can do is wait for destiny to take care of uniting them again. Venelana, and if it doesn't happen? Xeoticus, we will have no choice but to face the consequences, especially Rias, he said while looking at the ceiling. In Rias's room, several empty ramen bowls could be seen as well as a lot of clothes thrown around like towels. Everything was a complete mess in the redhead's room, who was lying in her bed not wanting to get up, being dressed only in underwear, as well as a little bit of long hair was noticeable. Undoubtedly a terrible state for the redhead, who no longer cared about anything. After all, the only thing that gave shine to her life was the chestnut, which she decided to abandon when she needed it most. Rias, Issei, please come back. You don't know how much I miss you. I miss the warmth that covered me every time I slept with you, the times we spent talking happily in the club, all those times you gave me that sweet smile that decorated your face. Please come back to my side. The little Gremory heiress began to cry as she hugged herself, remembering all the good times she spent with her cute pawn, without knowing that fate will soon make her see him again, but not in the way she expected.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.